Yo, what's up? I just wanted to let you guys know about the Odious KickStarter campaign. Odious is a new character that I've created and designed. If you've been a fan of my channel for a long time, you've probably seen this guy pop up in videos here and there, and I'm finally trying to make an action figure of it via Kickstarter, so be sure to go check that out. I'll leave a link in the description below. Thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time to check it out. Now enjoy the video. Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Unparalleled Universe for another action figure comparison video. And yes, I know it's been a very long time since I've done a comparison, but I have one here that I'm really excited about, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Today, what we're comparing are the recently released Tobey Maguire Spider-Man figures. On the left, we have the Marvel Legends version, and on the right, we have the S.H Figuarts version. And it's crazy because for years, we've all wanted a good Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. And you know, there's been a couple, they've been okay, but for the most part, they are pretty outdated. But then No Way Home came out and it kind of justified companies releasing like a new version of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. I really don't think they needed a new movie to justify it. I think that at any point, if they would have released a Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, people would have been very excited about it. But anyways, they put it off forever. No Way Home came out, and then just within a few months of each other, we have two different versions. So it's nice to have options right away. But yeah, I think both of these are good figures, but I'm excited to talk about the pros and cons between them and just trying to determine which one is actually the best out of the two. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So starting off with the design and the detail, I think that both of these figures do look pretty good, but neither one of them are perfect. Each of them have things that I like and each of them have things that I dislike. I will say though, I think that each figure does a pretty decent job of representing Tobey Maguire from the Spider-Man movies, but neither one of them do it perfectly. They both have things that could have been done a lot better. But starting off with the S.H Figuarts version, I think they did a great job with the sculpting work on it. The details are really well done. The paint work is nice. I think the design of the costume was translated very well onto this figure. And I think it just looks really good. The one thing I really dislike about S.H Figuarts Spider-Man figures is the way they do the pelvis area. There's just too much going on, you know. We've got these extra flaps, and right out of the box, these things were really loose. If you watch my review of this figure, you can see that these pieces just kind of slide around uncontrollably. But, you know, I modified it a little bit so they stay in place, and now it's fine. But out of the box, it kind of feels a little cheap, you know. And I just don't like the way it looks. There's just too much going on. And then on the back, we have like the thong-looking thing. That's hideous. I don't know why they do it like that. But they're kind of committed to that design. It does give you some extra range on the articulation, but I don't think the aesthetic sacrifice is worth it, to be honest with you. But aside from that, I think this figure is pretty much a perfect representation of the way that he looks in the movies. So it's a really great looking figure for sure. And then for the Legends one, obviously he doesn't have the big thing I dislike about the Figuarts version, because that's not how they do things. But, you know, I think there's a lot of flaws with this guy as far as translating the look. They try to have the spider webs kind of like stand out a little bit, so they painted them silver, but I think they went a little too light with it, and it doesn't really blend all that well. I think it's much better on the Figuarts version. But on the Legends one, we have the silver web lining, and, you know, that just doesn't really nail the look that they were trying to go for. But aside from that, I think this is a pretty good looking figure. The proportions are pretty good. I do feel like, I don't know, I think the lower torso looks a little weird. I wish it was a little bit more muscular, to be honest with you. But I guess you could kind of give it the excuse that this is supposed to represent a older version of that Spider-Man, so maybe he's not as muscular, I guess you could say. But I don't know. I do feel like the lower torso doesn't really have a whole lot of muscle definition. But aside from the web lines and the muscle definition thing, I think the figure looks good. He's got pinless knees, pinless elbows, which is nice. The articulation is very well incorporated into the design of the figure, so that's pretty good too. The head sculpt is okay. I don't know, I wish it was a little better, but it's all right. I think the eyes look a little weird. I feel like, I don't know, man. The more I think about it, there's a lot that I dislike about the design on this. Yeah, I don't know. I think it looks okay. I don't hate it, but there's a lot of things I feel that they could have done better. Yeah, the main thing I would say is probably the web lines. And the Figuarts figure did that just so much better. You could see the difference. The web lines do stand out against the red, but it still blends in very well and looks natural. Here, we've got all kinds of different colors going on. The spider logo is black, the web lines are silver, and then, you know, obviously the red and the blue. I wish that the web lines matched the spider. I think that would have looked a lot nicer, and that's the way that Figuarts did it. As a result, the design does look better. So yeah, like I said, you know, at first I was kind of thinking, yeah, both figures look good, but as I was talking my way through it, there was a lot of things I actually disliked about the Legends version. So I'm going to say that the Figuarts version has a better design, better details, and just better execution of translating the way that this Spider-Man looked in the movie into figure form. The only thing I dislike is the way they engineer the pelvis area, but that's not really a problem with this Spider-Man. It's a problem with how Figuarts does figures often. They're like committed to this whole design, so it is what it is. But yeah, aside from that, I think this guy represents the movie version of Spider-Man perfectly, and the Legends version does not. So as far as this category goes, I have to give it to the Figuarts version. In the accessories category, honestly, there's really no comparison. The S.H Figuarts comes with pretty much everything that we want to see with our Spider-Man figures, including 6 different sets of hands, 3 different head sculpts with 2 unmasked Tobey Maguire head sculpts, a loose mask piece, and some web effects. The web effects aren't great, but at least they did include something. Aside from that, I love all the accessories that he comes with. Like I said, it's pretty much everything that we want to see with Spider-Man. On the other hand, the Marvel Legends version doesn't really come with a whole lot. He does come with 3 different sets of hands, which I do appreciate. And he does come with this really weak-ass web effect. I don't like this thing at all. I really wish that he would have included an unmasked head sculpt, especially because, you know, it's Tobey Maguire and we want to be able to see that. Otherwise, it's just like a movie Spider-Man, you know? But adding that Tobey Maguire head sculpt really would have done a lot for this figure. Unfortunately, they left that out. I'm sure later on down the road, they'll re-release this figure with an unmasked head sculpt, but then, you know, that kind of sucks because we're pressured to buy like multiple versions of the exact same figure. I know how the game goes and everything, but they really should have included the unmasked head sculpt with this set, you know what I mean? Especially because this 3-pack included a Spider-Man figure that kind of felt unnecessary. It would have made it more worth it if the 2 other Spider-Man figures came with the unmasked head sculpts. As it is right now, no Tobey Maguire head sculpt for the Legends version, and I think that's a big reason why the S.H Figuarts did a better job with the accessories. And yeah, like I said, it's really no comparison. Accessories goes to the Figuarts all day. And when it comes to articulation, I would say that this isn't really a fair fight because Figuarts figures tend to have a lot more articulation than Hasbro Marvel Legends figures. That's just the way it is. So I do think that the Figuarts version is going to win this category hands down, but we'll go ahead and talk about it anyways. Let's go ahead and get him out of the way. We'll start off with the Marvel Legends version. So he does have a lot of good stuff going on. He's got all the things that we like to see on our Marvel Legends, double jointed elbows, double jointed knees. He has the torso setup with the diaphragm cut and the ab crunch. He has butterfly joints at the shoulders. Just pretty much all the standard stuff that we like to see on Marvel Legends. Spider-Man does have it. I will say though, it does kind of feel like Hasbro has taken a step back when it comes to the articulation. Not really with the amount of articulation their figures have, but the functionality of the joints. A common problem that we're seeing on a lot of Marvel Legends figures is the limited butterfly joints at the shoulders. Like, it moves a little bit, but you could tell that it doesn't move as much as it should. Kind of reminds me of the Vulcan figure. So I really wish they would fix that because it's cool that the joint's there, but it needs to move more, you know? Same thing for the diaphragm. I mean, I don't know. I guess the diaphragm's okay. I take that back. Yeah, I think the diaphragm's pretty good. The ab crunch is pretty good, but the neck area, that's the area that needs to be improved a little bit. It does have like that ball peg at the top of the neck, so you can't really get him to look up all that much. And you know, this type of articulation is okay at the head if we have articulation at the lower neck as well. And you know, those two things could work together and then you could kind of get enough range. But in Spider-Man's case, he doesn't have that lower neck articulation. The neck is a separate piece for some reason. So it seems like maybe they wanted to put articulation there, but they just didn't. I don't know. It's kind of weird. So yeah, I do wish that Hasbro would kind of clean up some of the joints so we could get the maximum range out of what's there. But I will say, I think that Spider-Man does have a pretty good amount of articulation and, you know, he's fun enough to play with, although some joints are a little bit restricted. Oh, you know what? He does have drop-down hips as well, and that's another thing where it's like, you know, he's got drop-down hips, but it doesn't really add anything. It's just there just to say that it's there. That's the type of thing where it's like, yeah, he's got butterfly joints and drop-down hips, but they don't do very much at all. It's almost like, why waste the money putting those joints in there if you're not going to make them work? But yeah, like I said, overall, I think that Spider-Man's articulation is pretty decent. Definitely could have been a little bit better, but he's fun to play with, and that's really all that matters. But when you compare him to the Figuarts version, it's not even close. The Figuarts version has all the great articulation that Figuarts figures typically have, you know. And for a while there, on their Spider-Man figures, they were not putting a bicep swivel. He does have that, thankfully, so that's awesome. He's got some really good range at the torso with a diaphragm cut and a ball joint at the waist. He has that lower neck articulation, the upper neck articulation. He's got like a butterfly joint type of situation too, but it is a little bit limited, I would say. But you could still do a lot. And there's still, you know, a bunch of other stuff going on. He's got the, you know, these crazy looking hips that do kind of give him a little bit more articulation. So I'll give them that. I don't know if it's worth the aesthetic sacrifice, but I will say it does give some nice articulation. So yeah, like I said, just like with most Figuarts figures, Spider-Man does have some really great articulation. He's a whole lot of fun to pose around and play with. The hip joints were a little bit loose. I did have to like put some stuff in there to tighten them up. And it does, you know, when a figure has so many joints and some of the joints are kind of loose, it makes the figure feel a little bit cheap. So on him, it did kind of feel like that for a minute, but I was able to remedy it. And I think that he's all good. But yeah, as far as the articulation goes, he's got pretty much everything that you want to see in a Spider-Man figure. And when compared to the Marvel Legends, he kills it in the articulation department. He's so much easier to pose. You could get him into iconic Spider-Man poses much easier than you can with the Legends version. You know, like crouches, swinging, fighting, all that kind of stuff is achieved much easier with the Figuarts version. So yeah, like I said at the beginning, the Figuarts version takes the articulation category hands down. And then when it comes to scale, I think that each one of these figures can be put into your 6-inch scale MCU collection, whether it's, you know, Figuarts and other imports or mostly Marvel Legends. I think that the scale is close enough between these two that it's pretty like interchangeable. You could use the Figuarts with Marvel Legends. You could use the Marvel Legends with imports. Even though the Figuarts version is a little bit smaller, I still think that it's fudgeable, you know, but obviously, Figuarts figures tend to run a little smaller than Marvel Legends, so, you know, if you want like a smaller Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, it's going to work. But honestly, you know, you're probably going to have him in some type of pose, whether it's crouched down or swinging or something. And I think that his size works if you have him in those type of positions, you know. If he's just standing up next to other Spider-Man figures from Marvel Legends, he may look a little small. But, you know, I think it's still going to work. The Marvel Legends one does look a little bigger, so, you know, the opposite's going to be true when you put him into collections with mostly imports, unless it's Mafex that tend to run a little bigger. But if you have the Legend Spider-Man with a bunch of other Figuarts Spider-Man figures, he may look just a little big, but, you know, if they're all crouching down and swinging and things like that, it's not even going to matter. I think it's fudgeable. It's not like he's humongous. It's not like you're trying to put a Marvel Select figure along with Figuarts or anything like that, you know. I think it's close enough to the scale of figures in that line that it's fudgeable, although it's not perfect. So that's kind of how it is. I don't think that either one of these really has a huge advantage in the scale department. I think that neither one of them perfectly crosses over to any other lines, but either one of them could be used in other lines, just not 100% perfectly, but definitely workable, you know. All right, so before I give you my final thoughts, let me go ahead and give you the quick rundown. So as far as the design, the sculpt, and the details, and all that good stuff, I'm going to have to give it to the S.H Figuarts version. I just think that he represents the way that Tobey looked in No Way Home a little bit more accurately than the Marvel Legends one. I do think the Marvel Legends one looks pretty cool, but I don't know, it kind of looks like maybe like a stylized interpretation of that version of Spider-Man. Obviously, you could tell that's what it's supposed to be, but it just feels like a little different. The colors are a little too bright. I think they could have done a better job of, you know, making the web lines kind of stand out, but still a little bit more subtle. Right here, they just pop out a little too much, in my opinion, as far as the color goes. You know, they're straight up silver. I don't think they should be that silver. The figure does look good. I do like the proportions and everything. But as far as representing this version of Spider-Man from the movie of which it came, I'm going to have to give it to the Figuarts. The only thing I absolutely hate about the Figuarts version is the way they do the pelvis area. But that's definitely not enough for me to take it down from, what it actually accomplishes. I think it does a good job of representing this version of Spider-Man from the movie. And then when it comes to articulation, hands down, no question, the Figure Arts one does everything better. The Marvel Legends one has some decent articulation, but there are a lot of shortcomings. There are some things that they straight up left out, like the lower leg swivel. In my opinion, that's kind of unacceptable. And then there are some joints that are there, but they don't function as well as they should. On the other hand, the Figure Arts one does pretty much everything that you want a Spider-Man figure to do. He's a lot of fun to pose around and play with. And, he's got a lot of good stuff going on. So I have to give it to him as far as the articulation goes. And when it comes to accessories, we have to give it to the Figure Arts once again, because he comes with all the stuff that we want with our Spider-Man figures. On the other hand, the Legends one doesn't really come with a whole lot. He has a couple of extra hands and a very weak spiderweb effect. No unmasked head. I'm sure we'll see that at some point, but they should have included it with this set. Unfortunately, they did not. So the Figure Arts one is going to win the accessories. And when it comes to scale, I would say that they're tied, because you could put either one of these figures into any type of 6-inch Marvel display. I think they both kind of work, especially if you get creative with the posing and things like that. Neither one of them is like too big or too small. I think that no matter what lines you collect, you could find a place for this guy in your whole movie display. One advantage I will give to the Marvel Legends version is that he does feel more durable. And that's typically the case when comparing Legends and Figure Arts. Figure Arts are more for like collectors and things like that. So sometimes they could feel a little bit more delicate, I guess you could say. Marvel Legends are, they're intended for like a wider audience. So they are a little bit more sturdy, more durable. You can play around with it and you don't really have to worry about like it breaking on you or anything like that. With Figure Arts, you don't really have to worry about it breaking, but you do need to be more careful. And also some of the joints on the Figure Arts one were just a little bit loose. Nothing like concerning, but when you take it out of the box and like the hips are loose or something, it's like something you have to either deal with or just kind of ignore. But with the Marvel Legends one, all the joints felt real tight and durable and a lot more, I guess, like a lot more resistant to any type of potential damage or anything like that. That is one advantage I will give to the Legends version. And then as far as the value goes, this is kind of a tricky one, because typically Marvel Legends have the advantage when it comes to the value because they cost so much less than import figures. But in this case, in order to get this Spider-Man figure, you have to pay like $90 or $90 to $100, because it comes in a 3-pack with the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man and a re-release of the previous Tom Holland No Way Home Spider-Man. Now, the Andrew figure is awesome, but the re-release of Tom Holland it just felt unnecessary. It would have been nice if they threw in the final swing version into this 3-pack, and it really would have been worth it. But, when you break it down, it's 3 figures, $90. You could call each figure $30, right? Give or take, it's going to be close to that. But this guy, for $30, I really don't think it's worth it. The value's not quite there. The figure has some inaccuracies in translating the way he looks in the movie. He does have some shortcomings in the articulation, and he really doesn't have that many accessories. And when you compare that to the Figure Arts version, which is also going to cost you, let's say $70 to $90 depending on when and where you buy it, but he comes with everything that you want with the Spider-Man figure. A bunch of different hands, 2 unmasked Tobey Maguire head sculpts, and that's very important for this version of Spider-Man, obviously. But he comes with, it feels like a complete package. So this Spider-Man, even though it's much cheaper, it just doesn't feel like a complete enough package to justify the $30 price point. And, if you just compare spending $90 on this figure versus $90 on this 3-pack, it still kind of feels better with the Figure Arts, because although you're only getting 1 figure, it's complete and ready to go. Over here, we're getting 3 figures, but one of them is basically just a straight up repaint. You probably have the other version already. And then the Andrew figure is like really, really good, but doesn't have an unmasked head sculpt. And then the Tobey figure is pretty good, but also doesn't have any unmasked head sculpts. So for me, I think there's more value in getting the Figure Arts version, even if it's around the same price as these 3 other figures. It's kind of a quality versus quantity kind of situation here. But yeah, it's a tough one. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. But anyways, so after all that, I've got to say the Figure Arts pretty much dominated the Marvel Legends version of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. It's pretty much better in every single way. The only real flaw is the way they designed the hips, but you know, that's how they do it. I knew that going in, so I can't really hold it against them all that much. The Marvel Legends one is really cool, but he does have a lot of shortcomings. I think in the future, if they re-release him like as a single release with the unmasked head sculpt and a bunch of different hands and, you know, whatever, even if it costs $30, I feel like it's a pretty decent option to have if you don't want to pay $70 or $80 for the Figuarts version. But, you know, I do feel like they need to do some work on some of their joints for the articulation when it comes to the Marvel Legends. But I think the main thing is the fact that he doesn't come with an unmasked Tobey Maguire head sculpt really hurts it. So in the future, if it has that head sculpt and lots of hands, let's say 2 head sculpts and a bunch of hands, and then call it $30 or $27.99. And I think, you know, I think at that point, you could see the value in it. And it may be worth it to get him instead of the Figuarts version. But as of right now, the Figuarts version is the best one that you could buy, in my opinion. And with that, I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Also, be sure to hit the bell notification so you know every time that I go live. Thank you very much. Peace.